I never considered myself the kind of guy who would get noticed. My life was a series of quiet routines. Wake up, school, homework, repeat. My name is Ethan, and at 16, I had the unfortunate distinction of being the school's classic nerd. Glasses that were perpetually smudged, braces that made me sound like a squeaky robot when I talked, and an obsession with comic books and coding that made me invisible to most of my classmates. Social hierarchies existed in their own cruel way, and I was comfortably, or uncomfortably, near the bottom. At home, I had a different persona, though I would never admit it out loud. Behind the closed doors of my room, I explored an interest that had nothing to do with programming or comic books. High heels, delicate blouses, soft skirts, and carefully applied makeup, the transformation fascinated me. I didn't know why at first. It wasn't about sexual curiosity. It was more like discovering a part of me that I had never dared to show anyone, a secret garden where I could be beautiful instead of invisible. But this was strictly my own world. No one else could know, not my parents, not my friends, not anyone at school. Then there was Isabella. She wasn't my girlfriend in the traditional sense, not yet, but she was the first person who had made me feel like I mattered. Confident, stylish, and impossible to ignore, Isabella had a magnetic presence. I'd known her since middle school, and though I never had the courage to tell her my secret, she somehow saw right through me. She liked teasing me in a playful way, her light laughter always sending a shiver down my spine, but there was something else, something that hinted at understanding, maybe even curiosity, about the real me. School was a battlefield, though I rarely fought back. The hallways were filled with people who had mastered the art of appearance. Clothes, hairstyles, the right attitude, it was all carefully calculated, and I was hopelessly behind. My nerdy demeanor made me a target for subtle jokes, sarcastic comments, and the occasional outright humiliation. And yet, when I imagined myself as her, as the girl I could become in private, I felt a thrill I had never experienced in the real world. A dream of transformation, of control over how people saw me, kept me awake at night. The house where I lived with my parents was cozy, almost quaint, a place that felt safe but stifling at the same time. My bedroom became a sanctuary, a small corner where I could indulge in my secret passion without fear. Shelves lined with neatly folded clothes in pastel shades, a small vanity adorned with brushes and palettes, and a mirror that reflected a version of me I had only allowed myself to see in fleeting moments. The contrast between the outside world, where I was Ethan, the nerd, and the inside world, where I became ethereal and captivating, was stark. It was exhilarating and terrifying all at once. The initial mood of this story is simple, quiet tension. I never expected my double life to collide with reality. But everything was about to change, starting with a seemingly innocent challenge from Isabella. She suggested we work together on a school project, something that required us to spend afternoons at each other's homes. It sounded harmless, but I felt a mix of excitement and dread. The possibility of being discovered gnawed at me. Would she notice the way my hands trembled as I fidgeted with my glasses? Or the longing in my eyes when I glanced at my clothes hidden in my closet? Despite my fears, I couldn't resist. Isabella had a way of pulling me out of my shell, of making the impossible feel within reach. She joked about wanting to see a different side of me, and my heart pounded in a mixture of hope and terror. Could I finally let her see me, the real me, even if it was just a hint? Or would this end in humiliation, the kind that the school hallways seemed to specialize in? Even though I wanted to be brave, part of me hesitated. I had spent years perfecting my secret life, and revealing it, even to Isabella, felt like standing on the edge of a cliff. One wrong move, one careless word, and my world could crumble. But another part of me, the part that longed to be seen, to be admired, to feel beautiful in a way that had nothing to do with grades or popularity, pushed me forward. Little did I know, that afternoon with Isabella would ignite a chain of events that would transform not just my appearance but my very life. From the nerd who had always hidden in the background, I was about to step into a world where attention, desire, and danger mingled in ways I could never have imagined. My secret passion, once confined to the quiet corners of my room, was about to collide with reality, and the consequences would be far beyond anything I had ever dreamed or feared. The afternoon sunlight streamed through my bedroom window, falling in golden strips across my cluttered floor. I sat cross-legged on the carpet, staring at my reflection in the small vanity mirror, heart pounding with anticipation. Today, Isabella would be over to work on our school project, a seemingly innocent invitation, but my mind was spinning with possibilities. Could she notice the clothes tucked neatly in the corner of my room? The skirts and blouses I had been too afraid to wear outside my door? My hands shook as I reached for the first piece of my transformation, a soft, pastel blouse. The fabric was delicate, almost fragile, and the way it slid through my fingers sent shivers down my spine. I had done this countless times when I was alone, but now, the thought of Isabella being just a room away made it different, electric, dangerous, exhilarating. I undressed quickly, fumbling with buttons and zippers as my nerves tangled my fingers. Slipping into the blouse, I felt the first wave of transformation wash over me, not just physically, but emotionally. The stiffness in my shoulders eased, my posture changed, and for a fleeting moment, I didn't feel like Ethan the nerd at all. I felt alive, beautiful, vulnerable in the best possible way. Next came the skirt, a delicate pleated number in a soft lavender shade. Sliding it over my legs, I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror and barely recognized the person staring back. My reflection was softer, more confident, or at least, it felt that way in the brief, private moment of self-acceptance. I pulled on a pair of ankle socks and gingerly stepped into my favorite heels, each click against the floor echoing like a heartbeat in my ears. I tried to steady myself, adjusting the skirt and smoothing the blouse, but my nerves were relentless. The thought of Isabella arriving at any moment made me hyper-aware of every detail, my makeup, my hair, the angle of my glasses. I applied a touch of eyeliner, mascara, and a subtle hint of blush, each stroke transforming my face further into the persona I had always kept hidden. And then I heard it, the sound of the front door opening downstairs. My stomach flipped. I had expected Isabella, but the immediacy of her presence made my heart race uncontrollably. My reflection in the mirror now felt like a fragile barrier between two worlds, the safe, secret self and the public, exposed one. "Ethan, you in here?" Her voice called out, cheerful and unsuspecting. I swallowed hard, nodding to myself. This was it, the line between safety and exposure, between fear and thrill. I took a deep breath and opened the door, trying to carry myself with a poise I hadn't known I possessed. "Hey!" Isabella's eyes lit up as she stepped into my room. "Wow, new look." I froze for a heartbeat, unsure whether she was joking. Then I realized she wasn't mocking me. There was curiosity in her gaze, a spark that made my heart leap. Yeah, just trying something new," I stammered, my voice betraying the nervous excitement bubbling inside me. Her smile was radiant, and she sat down on the edge of my bed, leaning forward with interest. "I like it. Really. You look different. In a good way." The word sent a thrill racing through me, but alongside it came a flood of anxiety. What if someone else saw me like this? What if my parents walked in unexpectedly? What if Isabella suddenly changed her mind and told everyone? The stakes felt impossibly high, and yet, the exhilaration of being seen, truly seen, was intoxicating. We began our project, books and notes spread across my desk. But my mind kept wandering, stolen by the reflection of myself in her eyes. Every glance, every casual compliment, every teasing remark sent electric currents through me. I realized that part of the thrill wasn't just the clothes or makeup, it was the secret power I held. I could be beautiful, confident, and admired, all while hiding the nerdy, awkward Ethan the world knew. But the tension never left. Each time Isabella got up to grab something from the kitchen, I felt panic clawing at my chest. My transformation was a delicate balance, a tightrope over a pit of humiliation. One slip, one accidental knock of a heel, and the illusion would shatter. The sound of my own heartbeat became deafening in the quiet apartment. As the hours passed, I experimented more boldly. A change of blouse here, a shift in hairstyle there. Each small adjustment was a victory, each successful moment of poise a rush of adrenaline. I began to imagine what it would be like to fully embrace this persona, not just in my room, but at school, among peers who had never given me a second glance. The fantasy felt dangerously close to reality, and the fear of discovery made it all the more exciting. Then came a moment that sent my heart into my throat. Isabella's phone rang, and she stepped into the hallway to answer it. The sound of her footsteps retreating left me alone with my reflection again. I looked at myself, Ethan, the nerd, or the girly queen I had just become. My hands trembled as I adjusted the hem of my skirt, smoothing every wrinkle, trying to maintain the illusion for when she returned. And that's when I noticed it, a small, loose thread hanging from my blouse. Panic surged through me. If she noticed, would she think I was clumsy? Or worse, would she realize the truth behind my secret? My fingers fumbled, trying to tuck it in, but the thread caught on my jewelry, pulling a delicate chain loose. My heart raced. Isabella returned at that exact moment, laughing at something on her phone. Her eyes landed on me, and for a second, the world seemed to stop. Would she see the thread? The trembling hands? The vulnerability I had tried so desperately to hide? Instead, she smiled and tilted her head. "You're really into this, huh?" she said teasingly. Her words weren't mocking, they were curious, almost approving. Relief washed over me, but it mixed with an even stronger anticipation. She had noticed something, yes, but she hadn't exposed me. The thrill of that delicate balance, the fine line between being discovered and being admired, sent shivers through my entire body. And so, the afternoon stretched into evening, a slow dance of tension and excitement. Each glance, each movement, each accidental brush of her hand against mine was a spark that ignited my deepest desires. I was transforming not just in appearance, but in confidence, in daring, in the secret knowledge that I could be both nerd and queen, awkward and beautiful, hidden and exposed, all at once. By the time Isabella left, the world outside my room felt different. I was different. The timid, awkward boy who had started the day had taken tentative steps into a new identity, one that promised danger, desire, and the thrill of being truly seen. But even as I celebrated, a shadow of fear lingered. Tomorrow, I thought, I might try it again. And the next day, who knows where this path would lead? One thing was certain, my life had changed. And the secret, intoxicating world of transformation was no longer just a private dream, it was becoming my reality. The next morning, the air in my room felt electric, charged with anticipation. My reflection in the mirror no longer startled me. Instead, it whispered promises of boldness and discovery. I had been practicing for days, rehearsing movements, balancing on heels, adjusting skirts, and perfecting makeup. Every morning felt like stepping into a new skin, and today would be the ultimate test. School was never a safe place for secrets, and I had agreed to a group presentation, a perfect storm of social exposure and pressure. The idea of showing up as my girly persona wasn't even possible yet. Or was it? The fantasy tugged at me like an irresistible current. Could I do it? Could I walk into the halls, where whispers and glances lurked behind every corner, as someone new, someone powerful, someone admired? As I dressed in my carefully chosen outfit, a soft pink blouse with lace trim, a pleated skirt that swayed with every step, and heels that made my legs feel impossibly long, I felt a mixture of exhilaration and terror. My hands trembled as I applied mascara, traced eyeliner with precision, and brushed my hair into a silky wave that framed my face perfectly. This was it. The transformation had to be flawless. Any mistake could destroy the fragile illusion I had built. At school, the moment I stepped into the hallway, the reactions were instantaneous. Gasps, double takes, whispers. My heart pounded like a drum in my chest. Some faces were filled with confusion, others with admiration, and a few with thinly veiled amusement. I held my head high, each click of my heels on the linoleum echoing with authority and daring. I could feel the power in my new presence, yet a small, nagging voice of fear whispered relentlessly, "One wrong move, and it would all be over." The first real test came when our teacher, Mr. Hargrove, called me forward to introduce our project. The classroom felt suffocating, every eye on me, every breath exaggerated. I felt my pulse hammer in my temples as I presented, trying to sound calm while my heart raced. Surprisingly, the words came naturally, The confidence of my transformed self poured out, a stark contrast to the timid, stuttering boy who usually stumbled over his sentences. Isabella's eyes found mine in the crowd, and her approving smile sent a thrill through me that I had never experienced before. But just as I was beginning to feel invincible, disaster struck. One of my heels caught the edge of the podium, causing me to stumble forward slightly. The collective gasp of the class froze me for a heartbeat. My face burned with embarrassment, yet I caught myself, adjusted my posture, and continued as if nothing had happened. It was a small victory, but the tension had never felt more tangible. The real climax came during lunch break. Isabella had invited me to join her and her friends at the cafeteria table, a move I had dreaded and desired in equal measure. Sitting among popular girls, perfectly poised and impossibly confident, I felt every eye on me. I was no longer Ethan the nerd. I was something else entirely, a girly queen, delicate yet commanding attention. Yet the suspense reached a fever pitch when a group of boys from my class, known for their cruel teasing, approached. My stomach knotted with fear. "Ethan," one of them sneered. "Is that you?" Their tone was mocking, challenging, and in that moment, I realized my secret was dangerously close to being exposed. I froze, unsure of how to respond, until Isabella stepped in, her voice sharp and protective. "Back off," she snapped. The boys hesitated, surprised by her boldness. In that instant, I felt an overwhelming surge of gratitude, and a flash of daring. I stood a little taller, met their eyes with defiance, and for the first time, felt a real sense of power in my transformed persona. The boys retreated, grumbling, and the cafeteria erupted into whispers and murmurs of admiration. The adrenaline high carried me through the rest of the day, but it wasn't over. On the way home, a sudden twist. My mother called, announcing an unexpected visit from a neighbor who knew nothing of my secret. Panic surged through me. I had to hide my outfit, my makeup, everything, and fast. Heart pounding, I scrambled to change in record time, barely managing to restore the familiar Ethan look before the knock on the door echoed through the apartment. As the neighbor entered, casual and unsuspecting, I forced a calm smile, masking the chaos of my emotions. Every nerve in my body was alight, the thrill of near discovery intoxicating. I realized that the risk, the potential humiliation, was part of what made this so addictive. I was teetering on the edge between two worlds, and the tension was almost unbearable. Back in my room, after the neighbor left, I allowed myself a moment to breathe. I stared into the mirror, reflecting on the day's events. The transformation had gone further than I could have imagined, physically, emotionally, socially. I had navigated attention, fear, and power with a newfound grace. Yet, beneath the triumph, the suspense lingered. Isabella had noticed, the boys had noticed, and the world outside my room was now a potential minefield of exposure. Then came the final symbolic moment, a single, almost ritualistic act that would define my dual existence. I removed my wig, revealing my natural hair, and studied myself in the mirror. Two identities stared back, Ethan, the nerd, and the girly queen I had become. The contrast was stark, yet the thrill, the power, the freedom I felt in embracing the second identity was undeniable. I understood then that my life had irrevocably changed. The climax was not a single event, but a cascade of near disasters, triumphs, and emotional surges. Each moment, the stumble on the podium, the confrontation with the boys, the sudden visit from the neighbor, the victorious reflection in the mirror, was a step into a world I had never imagined. And the suspense didn't end. It was only beginning. By nightfall, as I lay in bed, my heels and skirt carefully stored away, the weight of the day pressed on me. I was exhilarated, terrified, and exhilarated again. The thrill of the unknown, the delicate balance of secrecy and exposure, had me on edge. Tomorrow promised new challenges, new transformations, and new moments of suspense that would test the limits of my courage, my identity, and my desire to be seen. The apartment was quiet now, the chaos of the day replaced by the soft hum of evening. I sat on my bed, carefully arranging the skirt and blouse I had worn, feeling the residual thrill of the day still pulsing in my veins. My reflection in the mirror stared back at me, Ethan, the nerd, and the girly queen I had become, intertwined in a fragile balance I wasn't sure I could maintain. Every small detail of the day played over in my mind. The way Isabella's eyes lingered on me, the startled reactions of my classmates, the confrontation with those cruel boys, and the narrow escape from discovery when the neighbor arrived unannounced. Each moment had left me exhilarated, terrified, and craving more. I realized then that this wasn't just a hobby or a secret indulgence anymore, it was becoming a central part of who I was. But just as I allowed myself a small sigh of relief, the sound of a notification on my phone made my heart lurch. A message from Isabella. "Hey, we need to talk. Can you come over tomorrow?" I froze. Was she going to confront me? Was this the moment my secret would be exposed? My imagination ran wild, conjuring scenarios of embarrassment, rejection, or worse. The thrill of yesterday's adventures now felt like a dangerous edge I had teetered on, and perhaps I had leaned too far. I tried to calm myself, telling my heart to slow, my thoughts to focus, but the suspense was unbearable. Could I risk showing up at her house again in my girly persona? What if this was the moment my carefully maintained balance shattered? My pulse raced as I considered my options, each one fraught with danger and desire. The room felt smaller now, almost suffocating, as if the walls themselves were closing in, pressing me to make a choice. The mirror reflected not just my face but the duality of my existence, the timid, awkward nerd and the confident, alluring girly queen. Which version of myself should I show Isabella tomorrow? Which one would survive the scrutiny, the risk, the inevitable questions? And then, a faint sound from outside the apartment, footsteps in the hallway. My heart skipped a beat. Could it be my parents? The neighbor again? Or someone else? Someone who might uncover the fragile truth I had spent so long hiding? The fear was sharp, immediate, and intoxicating. I held my breath, listening. The footsteps paused. A knock on the door followed, soft but deliberate. I froze, every nerve on edge, every instinct screaming that my life as I knew it could change in an instant. Should I answer? Pretend to be nothing more than Ethan, the nerd? Or risk revealing the girly queen I had fought so hard to become? Time seemed to stretch endlessly, each second a torment of anticipation. My hands trembled as I debated my next move, my mind racing through possibilities and consequences. The thrill of yesterday's transformation, the confidence I had tasted, and the fear of exposure all collided, leaving me paralyzed yet desperate for action. And then the knock came again, louder, more insistent. My reflection stared back at me, eyes wide with the same mix of fear and exhilaration I felt coursing through my veins. This was the moment that would define everything, the line between my two selves, the boundary between secrecy and revelation, the precarious edge of a world I could no longer control. I stepped back from the mirror, my breath shallow, my heart hammering. The door loomed in front of me like a barrier between the safety of my room and the uncertainty beyond. A decision had to be made, but the suspense was unbearable. Who was out there? What would happen if I opened the door? And most terrifyingly, what would Isabella think when she finally saw the person I had become? I reached for the doorknob, my fingers trembling, and the screen fades to black.